Okay, today we're gonna talk about message. It's the workshop. Like I'm gonna teach about it. I'm Marco Ritter. My forum nick is Welcome, and this is Andre. Here, good. This is Nick. If you have a question or if you're stuck with the patch or something is not working during the workshop, then just give him a sign. He's gonna come to you and help you catch up, or yeah, don't hesitate to snip, and he'll help you. We both work in a company, Interlight, in Dresden. So message seems a little weird because it's different than most other packs in V4, because it actually tries to extend its functionality in a different way. It's not just adding more things to do, it's actually turning VVVV upside down. To do this efficiently and safely, I'm going to talk about two more things very much related to message. One is the formula, and the other one is the keep. Yeah, I put some fancy logos so you can kind of get a mental image, but more for that later.
Nee, es geht nicht schon.
Okay. So that's the table of content for today's workshop. First, I'm gonna go into what actually is the problem. I mean, it doesn't really seem useful to propose message as a solution to something if you're not fully aware of the actual problem it tries to solve. So I'm gonna talk about that. I will quickly highlight why object-oriented programming paradigms might be a solution to these basic problems. Go into what a message actually is, and then I cover the other two concepts. And after that, I will just show you a few useful things for serialization, like how you can save a message to disk or a stream of messages and reload it, or how you can network with it. I'm hopeful we're gonna build a chat program by that time, so we can chat. Okay. If you're interested, I might even try to compare it to VL at that time. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Uh-huh. This is just too weird. Maybe you can zoom. I know I can do. So this patch looks actually more like this. It's a patch of mine around 2012, and it's one of those projects that I developed for quite some time, like two years. It kind of grew, and eventually I ended up with this. It's lots of nodes. It's very hard to actually understand from an outsider's point. And it was called Switch Boy. It was boy groupable. You could use many walls, many projectors. You could soft edge. You could connect devices to it, like MIDI devices or controllers, and control immersive visuals. So there's quite a lot of things to take care of in this program. But at the end it looked like this. We used it in our VJ collective, and I was the only one who could actually set it up properly, because it basically looked like this. I tried to make it better by refactoring, and there's actually it's clustered quite well, even though it looks terrible with all the links. You got the setup, you got the core system over there, you got the engine over there, you have a GUI and a preview of the whole setup down there. The actual output is quite clear. It's just a renderer that's chopped up in a viewport, depending on how many projectors you put in at the top. You have some data binding to map, for example, a certain controller to a certain color or a certain movement in the visuals. This was done on the fly during the show. You didn't have to pre-map it. You could actually, with the right click in the GUI, you could map this. So, but still, it just wasn't possible to get rid of this this link mess. Good. There are another part of this. You might have seen this in your own patches. This, for example, is for the audio analysis. You have a whole bunch of values from the audio analysis, like the FFT, and it should be here. Ah, yeah. Some of them are spreaded, some are not. And the usual way to handle this is you just cons or zip them into one stream of values. Try to also collect the bin size. Maybe give it a name, so you have 3 cons, and then you somehow send it over the wire. In this case we use DMX, but it can be any protocol. A big problem of this is, of course, how you split it again, because you basically need a module pretty much like this, just to know, like, the 3rd value is supposed to be the master beat, or the 25th value is the 2nd slice of the FFT. If you mess this up even slightly, most of the data will be bullshit. So it's very important to keep synchronized, but also very hard, because there's no central definition of what's what. And also there seem to be not just at the sender and the receiver where this information is necessary, but also in between, because, for example, the OC needs to know in advance what you expect. Maybe. Yeah. Also, in this case, you need to know what the actual type is. Is it a float? Is it an integer? Okay. It was hard at that time to actually acknowledge to myself that Switchboy cannot be saved, because I liked it pretty much. I had lots of fun with it, and I abandoned the project. Not because it was crap, but because I didn't want it anymore. Just because I felt I cannot maintain it for much longer. Like, each show had needed some add-on. Each show had a minor tweak, or maybe each show had a slightly different input devices, and each time was a pain, like a pain. And I just didn't want to do it anymore, click in the spider web of links that I was certain at that time that cannot be fixed within V4. I abandoned it. But also, I don't know, I felt like a failure, even though like now I think it was like a natural barrier I hit within V4. To illustrate that point, let me you see it's got too many links. The modularity, that's actually the strength of VVVV couldn't be maintained because information was actually distributed, and it could also didn't scale that well, like adding more projectors or more clients, and the workload just kept on increasing and not in a linear way, because mostly because how spreads were handled. Like adding a new projector, you might need to select it with across all the other projectors for some calculations, so it didn't scale well either. Some more examples. How a join would have been with the cons, and also the other example I showed you. Okay, at that time there was NSYNC released their own visual patching tool, and I opened it and it looked clean, like really clean. Maybe I have some better pictures. It might just be the brightness, actually.
Yeah,
we had this issue yesterday. Like if you make a average contrast and the brightness a little lower, it should be maybe easier. Yeah, contrast is too high. So Iris really looked clean, like the main patch was very structured, like the way I would have liked Switchboy to look, and I was like, ooh, okay, it is possible. And I really started digging into this, like how it was done, and it's not getting better, huh? Yeah. It's not. Okay, so I discovered the dirty secret of Iris, which is S and R nodes. You see, this is all the receiving nodes for integers, for nodes, for transforms, for strings. Like, they were massive, they were all over the place, really all over the place. And I think S and R nodes, even though you remove all the visible links, they are still in the program. You just take them out and hope for the best that all these invisible links still stay in the mind of the programmer. Because they are still there. You don't see them, but they are still there, and you still need to consider them. Also, they don't scale well either. Especially if you have some frame delays in there, you will have a point in your program when it just fails. It won't even start up for some reason. So there's a certain time where this approach is gonna fail too. Yeah, Iris in this case was abandoned as well. I think they kind of reached the same conclusion, that it cannot be maintained for a bigger group of people. You need to know the insides and the inside and out of the Iris to actually use it properly. We have another exhibit. Let's see, where is it? The molecule viewer. It's kind of the reference for a clean project in the GoPro. It's made by Anton. Sorry for. It's very easy to read. Like if you go into the structure, it's very easy to read and to understand what's happening. You even see the interfaces where you can add more data or where you can extend it. It seems much cleaner than the two examples I showed you before. But even here, you see S and R all over the place, deeply hidden in modules. You got fancy frame delays in a lot of those modules, and I'm just telling this from experience. If you mix them all over your project, there will be a point of pain. So my conclusion at that time was VVVV itself doesn't have the tools to make a big project that's maintainable, that's shareable for a broader community. There's just a limit. So a border. So let's cross this. How could it be fixed? My personal approach was, there are different solutions for that were proposed. Like, for example, database, which is like a central repository where you just enter your data in an Excel way, and it's kind of retrievable from all over the place. So that was proposed. I thought it might just be enough to get rid of all the links and pack them into one, to encapsulate different properties into one thing that can be sent over the wire. Could be seen as some kind of semantic aggregation. What do I mean by that? You kind of define a thing. For example, in the switchboard, you could define a projector as a thing and put all the properties of a projector, like its name, its IP, its field of view, its position, its rotation, whatever you want. Even if it's activated, if it's in calibration mode, all that goes into one object called the beamer. See? Yeah. Let's try this, how this would work out with message. If you start it up, you can patch along if you want to. Just need to start before. Okay, the first node I'm gonna show you is the config key. Why it's called that and that I'll explain later, but I think it's a good node to get this started. if you have this node, you can right click it and you get this new window. If you double click anywhere in the gray area of this window, you get a new thing like that. And you can type here. What it's expecting, like if you type any crap, it will turn red because it doesn't know what it's supposed to be. What we want to do here, we want to define the pins of this config heap that will be brought together into this one message. So what did you want? Position. Position is good. This vector 3D position. Whoop. And now we have this little pin here. It's called position. It indicates that it has it's a vector 3D. Same can be done with the rotation. Oop. There it is. If you uncheck this, it will keep it in as an option, but the pin itself will not show. Only if it's checked, the pin will be here. Just for reference, all of them have a little hidden bin size. You usually don't need it. If you do, just know that it's fully spreadable. All the properties inside a message can be either a single value or a spread. Doesn't matter. To help you with this, there's just for example, the field of view could be done like vector 2D for the X and the Y, but it could also be done float 2. So it's a spread of two floats for X and Y. It's basically the same. If you do this, you can see the field of view has a value and the bin size is preset to 2. So now we have this message, which supposedly includes all the things we put in here. Also you see it's named. The pin has the name of the attribute, which helps if you try to understand an application that's made with message. You can just hover over these things and you know what's what, which is tremendously useful. It's not some kind of anonymous zip or unzip. You can actually always see what's what and what it is supposed to be. If it's a string or a raw, you just see and know. So now we want to get the data out again. Like eventually, somewhere else in the program, you actually want to use the field of view, for example, to create a perspective for the projector. So for that, we have the split message. And it also got a window pretty much like this. And all I need to do, I can click on this, like in the gray area, move it here. I can, if I just, for example, you delete this. Oop. You can delete these things by right-clicking on them, by the way. And here I just click this, drag and drop. Bam.
How could it right click, because the right click you get to undo
Yeah, double click on the right, on the gray, creates a new one. Right clicking on the field deletes it. Drag and drop works. Okay, is it working for everybody? Do you have any glitch so far?
Perhaps it's worth mentioning that this is one possibility to get a message split. So this node here, the split node, is very generic. So it doesn't know which message is coming in, and so we are supposed to define what the structure should be split into. But there will be other possibilities in the workshop which we show to do it differently and it's more convenient.
Yeah. So I call this the dynamic approach, because you're not restricted. You can put in anything in the split. If it's in the message, you will see it, but you can also, like, I don't know, color test. So there's no field called test in the config heap, so it will not be in the message. And now if I try to get this out, it will report nil. In fact, TTY, we have this. We will even warn you that this split node tried to output a field that wasn't in the message. If you know what you're doing and you don't care, you can actually toggle this off and it will never warn you again. Because there are sometimes cases where you actually want to access it like that and don't. Well, yeah. Okay, you don't want this. Okay, one thing while we are here, I want to introduce a third node. It's called edit. One thing I might want to show at the point. Let's say it's not showing. Well, anyway, sometimes those windows appear tabbed. There's one trick to untap them that you need to know. You can click in this area while you hold the Alt key, then you can untap them. This happens when you create a lot of these nodes. All these windows pop up. They all get created on the same spot. And usually it's confusing, like which split you're actually editing, for example. With this method you can untap them and close them individually. while they are tapped, they are all collapsed and opened simultaneously, which is really awful. But if you untap them, you're good to go.
They display the descriptive name also. If you give a descriptive name to your split, it will.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. So, and now you see.
Actually, add it to the split node.
Yeah. This helps somewhat, but then again, setting a descriptive name is a little.
Jetzt jetzt mal kurz den Inspektor.
Was?
Im Inspektor, dass du quasi im Inspektor auch die Konfiguration siehst, wie du da eigentlich bist.
Na, später. Eigentlich würde ich so verstecken, aber es ist gar nicht mehr nötig, das zu sehen. Okay. What else did we have? Position, rotation, view projection. That's something I might want to add even here. It's possible too. Just transform. Give it a name. Bam. And you get a node that expects a transform. So I'd say most data types are covered that are common to V-Form. It's Boolean, integer, or float in general, which is double, string, raw, transform, vector 2D, vector 3D, vector 4D. And get something time, which is a localized timestamp, message itself, so you can stuff a message into a message. And I added some support for basic DirectX 11 types like image, geometry, layer, and buffer, like raw buffer and structured buffer. So there's selection of possibilities. This. I was getting ahead of myself. A message itself is basically just a shell for these things you define with the config key. All data types are stuffed into that into what's generally called a dictionary. If you go into VL, you'll see this type a lot, I think. So it's a dictionary, a collection of named attributes, and in this case even typed. There are two more things essential to a message. One is its topic. Like in OSC, you had an address which identifies the whole structure, kind of. In MQTT, the same thing is called topic, and I was thinking a lot about the terminology and decided to just call it topic 2. It's not really an address, it's not supposed to tell who's receiving it, it's actually just telling what the message is about. In our example, I would call the message maybe projector number 1. It would be the topic of the first message. If I have like 10 projectors, I could either name them, give them like proper names like Rudi, Andreas or whatever, or I could number them and send give each message with the details of each individual projector and an individual topic, so I can access them quickly and uniformly. Second thing each message has is the timestamp. The timestamp is again a localized date time, which means you can tell where it was made, because it makes a huge difference if you have it 2 o'clock in the afternoon in New York or Tokyo. Makes a huge difference. It's not the same time. Most cases don't actually need that kind of thing. I thought it's smart to have it anyway, because you don't, when you run into the situation, you're just golden. You don't need to care about adding it somehow, but it just works out of the box. The possibility to actually set it yourself is limited, because it's supposed to tell you when the last change to the message was done. So as soon as you, for example, in this example, let's open this. Yeah, you can see when it was made. And you see the topic is called state. Like I said, I actually want to call this Beamer 01. And you can see now it's called Beamer 01. Another way to actually retrieve the topic is a hidden pin here in the split. Always in the front, so you can quickly know which data belongs to which. Okay, now just so I wanted to show the edit node, just for quick reference. I will copy the preview color over to the edit. I get the pin. And now it's basically what I want to do. I have this preset. Let's say I have a preset of all the projectors. And for some reason, in some sub-module, I want to change the color, like make it a little darker or make it blink, something like that. For that, I have this edit node, and if I start changing that, it should override this color. Right now, it's not doing that because the force button is on. Let's uncheck this, and the same will be here. Another force. And uncheck this too. Now there's an extra mechanism kicking in that tries to detect if something changed in the actual input. And as long as there's no actual change, it will not do anything to the message. Only if I start changing this color, it will pick it up and send it down here. And only if I start changing this, it will actually start updating this color. To prove this, you can just change. Yeah, you see, the message only changes when I actually move the color around. It's fully spreadable. You can create many messages with one. Can you speak louder a little? Sorry.
But in the end, we have 2 or 3 slices.
I see. I see. So you have like one color, and here you want to have 2 colors for some reason. Let's try to color it better. Okay. Make this. Like this. And also let's output the information about the preview. So right now it's this value, and I change this. It's not picking up the second one because the pin size is still set to 1. If I set this to 2 or even -1 like you're used to, it will actually switch it. So try it like this. This thing is important. How the information gets packed into the message.
Why you connect the output from edit to split?
Yeah. This is the thing Gregson always warned you about. This is mutable data, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You see, this thing is editing the message. The message is residing in here. It's actually it has a safe place in the keep. So I change it here, but the message is actually referenced in here. This node knows that something happened to the message it is keeping, and if it's doing that, it starts outputting it to the next one. It depends. You cannot be entirely sure because you don't know what's first. If the edit is first, then next one will be the split anyway. It will be in the same frame. But you cannot be sure. It could be also the other way around. It will split the old value, change it after that, then it will finish the frame. Next frame, the config keep will know, okay, something happened to the message, and not everybody knows about the change yet, and will push all messages out this output pin again. And all nodes will again try to see what changed and act accordingly. So this is safe. This is very safe. You won't miss data. It's just the slight thing that you cannot be sure if it's done in what order it is done. If you want to make sure, you can connect it like that. It's pretty much like you would do it in VL. If you want to make sure that the order is correct, you need to do it manually. Which I find a smart way to do. Instead of restricting the user to not do certain things, I would rather allow the user to do it and provide good means to help him get results, to actually manually fix it so things work as planned. So basically it doesn't matter which way I make it. Yes?
Now you have to connect like the config key to the edit, but it's also accessible via the like I have the topic. I don't know if it's unique or not, but if I would be able to put in the topic into the edit,
no. You cannot change the topic with edit.
No, I don't want to change the topic. I want to access the topic without having the connection.
The connection to where?
From config key to edit.
Without this?
Yeah. So when
Frag nur mal, ob das geht. Das
If I have a topic set for a config key and it would be unique,
Okay.
like send and receive basically.
It's not meant to be like that. It's meant to be links. It's not the access your data anywhere magic. You're actually supposed to make data flow patching, which helps to. It's one of the basic core ideas. If you make the link visible, you have to take care of how you architecture your program, and as long as you abstain from S and R, you still have to think about it. You still have to design the architecture of your program, and you cannot take shortcuts. Of course, you can also put a message into S and R and give it the same name as the topic if you want to, but that's not the idea behind it. It's rather to create like message buses. For example, like if you have like one projector, it might not be much, but you have 27 of them. You can all send them over one wire and even mix them with, for example, all the information about clients, all the information about input devices, and then split this one message bus into the information you want to have. And for that you might want to need the topic. And just to finish your question, for that you have the sift message node.
Change the color. Why reset color of the feed? Now we did color.
Yes, this one.
We have color. Now if you change this color.
This is because the preview color bin size is set to 1 on here, and here it is set to -2 or -1 or 2. So now it's assumed that preview color has a bin size of 1, and here it's 2. Usually you keep the same bin size. I think it was a quite theoretical example to add a second color. Usually you would just have 1, you see? And now it's just picking up the first color. And the second color is ignored because there's only one message coming in. The second color would relate to a second message in the input, but there's none, so it will be ignored. Does this answer your question? Usually you would keep the bin size. I think it's a very rare thing that you actually have changing bin sizes. It does happen. I had cases where it was useful to have this option, but usually you would stick to one bin size per field. So the topic. Topic is the single most thing to identify a certain message. For example, if I have this config key and I want to retrieve this message, it's called like this. You can simply sift for the message and you see it's being found. If I search for something else, it's not being found. Cool thing about this, it supports wildcards, so this will be found too. So if it starts with a B and somehow ends with 0.1, it will be found. So that's a very quick way to actually search for a certain message where you know the topic.
I even have the not found or origin.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's complementary number of
Yeah, it was for
messages
free.
itself. It's not just error messages, the messages itself are not found.
Yes.
Yes. The remaining part, so you can have some chaining.
Okay, but let's not get ahead.
Zeit. Gibt es trotzdem?
Okay, so the topic is something you give to the message to, well, however you like. You can even keep it like it is. It's called usually state or event. It's really completely up to you what you think this topic should be for each individual message. Of course, it's useful to make up your mind beforehand how you want to structure it. I tend to use namespace kind of topics. So, for example, input devices. If I have a game controller, I usually call it input.xbox controller or input.midi.xtouch. So I can actually retrieve all the inputs or all the inputs that are related to MIDI. So I try to give it some kind of fully qualified name. But how you want to do it it's up to you. It cannot be empty. That's not possible. It needs to have a topic. Okay. Now, next thing I wanted to talk about, it's the formula. There's a time when your application grows that you find yourself with many splits and edits and create nodes and all that kind of stuff, and it kind of loses its advantage. You're back to the point where we started. It's hard to maintain. You have to find all the splits, and if you decide to rename like this, the name FUF is crap. It should be something that other people can understand. So I want to call it field of view now. It's turning red. It's trying to warn you that something is gonna break. You see, I'm intending it to call it field of view, which would mean that this link wouldn't exist anymore. It would kill this pin and recreate it, but it's connected. I decided to rather mark it as red, so you have to go there and delete this link manually. If you do this, it will realize, okay, now it's safe to delete, and it will recreate the new one immediately, and you're back to what you want. But now I would have to find all this field of view stuff in all the other nodes, and there's very little help for that to find all these other nodes that might access the field of view, right? So to get over this restriction, there's the formula. It's some kind of standardized definition for messages that are valid all over the application. For example, this is inspiration, German tax return form. You have fields that are assigned, that are kind of, well, not required. You can always leave them open, but if you enter some data, it's got a name, it's got a position, it's got some yeah. It's a standardized kind of message definition, and only about the structure of the message, not the content. That's important to say. It just tells, okay, the projector, all projectors should have a position that's a vector 3D, but it's not telling a default or something. It's just telling the fact that it should have something like this.
With updates, now mean updates of the structure.
Yeah.
So, well, how do you do this? You have this handy node called formula. Maybe I even do it in a different patch just to show you what I mean. Formula. Oop. Let's say I want to call it beamer, or beamer might be not a good name because in the English language it's usually called a projector. And the configuration. Configuration is easy. You just type it in here. Position. This can be either comma separated, like this, deletion, or a spread, doesn't matter, or mixed, whatever you feel most comfortable with, or whatever. Again, this node turns red quite often, but the same with this stuff here I showed you. This is intentional. It keeps on working like it's supposed to, even though it turns red, which is weird for to use it like that. But it's just trying to help you to go to the node, fix it, and allow the changes it's supposed to do. While it's red, it continues to work like before. It's just a visual marker that you need to put some attention on it. So before it was going red because I left this empty, and it doesn't know what to do with the empty field, so it turned red. If you have a typo in here, or if you for some reason pick a field name that's on the blacklist, it will tell you turn red and tell you here on the error message. Here you see the empty is a forbidden name for field. Sorry, please pick a different one. I did. It turned gray again. Okay. It's bin sizable again, so can define many formulas with one single node if you want to. But I leave it the default, which is safe. All these fields configurations will relate to this formula, so it's -1. It allows some basic inheritance, but I'm not gonna cover that here. Okay, once it's gray, I can now safely update, which means the structural information is now published all over your patch, and can be accessed by many message nodes, in particular the ones with these windows. So
When I restart the patch, is this done automatically? The updates done. You have the update on the formula. You have to bang it
Yes, you have to bang it to publish it.
Okay.
Before
But
that,
not
it's
if
not-
you restart.
Not if
If
I
you start the program, it's
I know
just
you.
loading.
You
No.
there are very few cases where you actually need an unopen with the message nodes. Like a default will release a new default message, for example. Let's see this. Don't talk about this. Default. So default creates one message. When I bang, yeah, you see? If I pick a projector, this is the definition. I'll cover that later. So I bang this. It's still here in the info, and now I can both see in the info the layout of the message. So all these fields are actually inside the message. And if I see the full dump of it, you can see it's got two values for the field of view, vector 3D, which I cannot look inside because the toString is missing in the plugin SDK, and the rotation. All of them are initialized with zeros, usually. Let's just say I want to. What did I call it? Preview color.
What's the point of spreading the string, the definition, rather than having one long slice just for convenience?
Yeah, it's just convenience.
You should decide for one of both, or you can decide for one. So this now it makes not real sense, but if you want to structure a bit, there are some flows or some, and in the end it's the same. It's just a list later.
Yeah, for example, I mean, I kind of defined my things dynamically, so I could put it in here and just copy this definition into the formula. Just do this again. Bam. And leave it like that. And once I come back, once I know what that this is gonna work, I can come back, separate this with the node, and make a proper spread out of it, and make it accessible. But to actually have this rapid flow, this is just for convenience. So it's very easy to make the leap from rapid prototyping to structured programming with the formula. Okay. And you see, I hit update. So this is the old. I didn't hit update yet. So now I'm gonna hit update. The default will know something had changed. Will push a new default.
You already.
Bam, and you see now the messages contains all the new information I wanted. So I don't need. Same will happen when I open the patch for the first time. It will know there's no default, produce that. It's probably useful to have a default and push that automatically. No unopen necessary. Okay. Gonna get rid of that again. Keep the info. Info actually, in fact, is a very important node because it allows to peek inside the message very quickly. Just so you know. Now, the whole point of this is to structure the existing nodes. So all of them have this pin, this enum pin, called formula. And as soon as you define new formulas, they will show up here. I can pick this projector, and now something changed in this. Show this again, because this is So if I don't have a formula, all these fields are white and I can freely add new ones and remove them again. If I set this to a projector, all of them turn a different shade of gray, and now I cannot add more and that I cannot remove them either. I can just decide if I want to have the pin or not. It's good practice to only open the pins you actually need because of performance reasons and of visual clutter.
So if you disable the pins, it's also removed from the communication network.
Well, better example might be the split. I set this to projector as well. Same thing happens. It tells me which things the message might have, if it's according to the formula. But I only need to split the information I actually need. So it's not like you have all of them, which can be quite big for big messages. You just decide, okay, I just need the field of view and the shift, the lens shift. That's enough to create a projection matrix. So you just split those and don't care about the other ones. And this is needed. And again, this might be good. Okay, let's say I used to have preview color this. Let's say for some reason this was called like that, and now I switch to a formula. Ooh. Why it's not going red? That's the reason. Interesting. Okay, that's a little bug. Okay, it's turning red. TTY will warn you, and you even get the exception warning just to show you this. Okay, that doesn't even. Okay, so now all the nodes, there was a bug, I'm not gonna go deeper into that, it's something I have to fix. Actually, it was supposed to warn you that you need to manually remove the link, but the error message was pretty nondescript and I need to fix that. Anyway, now I have this formula. Close this. And now all these nodes with the set formula are linked to that. Just open this one. So if I add something else, bam, it stays gray, which means the definition would be valid. So I can safely publish, and bam, you get the new thing as an option. It will not open it automatically, only if you actually need it.
And what happens to this parameter that you added to edit, which is not part of the formula? Preview color test. It's not part of the formula, is it?
Actually,
Okay, it's pure color.
Yeah,
just a
it's-
package of pure color.
it's yeah. So you, for sometimes, I mean, it's probably not good practice and shouldn't be taught in the first lesson. If you set this to none, you can add any other field with any other name arbitrarily.
Because it's converted into a free message. Right?
Yeah, it's just added to the message. It's like if you have a letter and there's some information kind of required from you,
Okay.
but you can decide to put in a picture of yourself
So this
inside. You can just decide to do that. It's not required, it's not part of the standard for this kind of communication with your financial institutions, but you can. And same is true for message. You can just add more stuff if you want to. Sometimes it might be useful for internal debugging reasons, or yeah, you can. So now now I can safely rename something. For example, position might be too vague. To give it another more descriptive name. It's valid. It stays gray, so I can update it. And now you see things turn red all over the patch. Because this might actually be better. Here, you see, manually remove unneeded links first. It tells you it's a config keep that's complaining. It tells you the node ID.
Errors with components.
So you can just copy this and put it into Sable's plugin, and it will tell you the place. Problem is, if you use an alpha, or if you manually enable the exception dialog, it will just keep on spamming you and you won't be able to fix it. So just hit OK and hide. Now you can go there, remove the link that's gonna break, bam, and it will not necessarily restore it because it doesn't know that you just renamed it. So you go there, click it again, connect it again.
So it's not a real renaming, but it's a deleting and
Yes, a
creating
replacing.
or replacing.
Yeah. It's not the cleanest way, but it was at the time it was the quickest. It should actually detect that it's a rename, but it doesn't. Same is true for the split. So I just remove the link, open the formula editor, toggle it. One thing that might be helpful at times, usually you have a module with all kinds of inputs, and you kind of try to spread it out so it's readable, and eventually you add a split on top of it and want to connect all the major inputs of the message to the input. In former times I sometimes had to rearrange modules inside just so they look pretty from the outside. That's no longer necessary. Like for example here you have crossing links, which you might find confusing. So you can just click it here, drag and drop, and it's gonna rearrange the pins to the way you want it. Clean patches. Okay. So to come back here, just to summarize, a formula with a certain name can only be defined once. So if I, for example, try to have a second formula, the same name, it's turning red and it's going nuts. So a definition can only be done once. But even though it's going nuts, the rest will not be affected by this. The rest will keep on working like it's supposed to. It's just this node that will tell you here, fix me. It can use inheritance. So for example, if I have what's a good example? Like a MIDI device. I might have an abstract description of a MIDI device, like what channel is it working on, what's the IP of the device, what's the name of the device, what's the standard color of it. And then I want to have the nano quark as a special formula with all the knobs and all the little sliders. So I kind of inherit from the abstract description to the actual device. Maybe I should just patch it, it makes it easier. Like that. I can then make a second. Which I call input MIDI. Like this. And here I might just expect float 8 fader and float 8 knobs. Then I tell it to inherit from the abstract definition. I need to update this and this. And you see it's kind of flattening them into one thing. If there's some conflict, like for example, if I define the channel as an int here, but for some reason try to define it here as a byte, it will detect a conflict and highlight in red until you fix the problem, and only then you can publish. Okay, that's about the formula. Any questions about this? Yeah, okay. Did you set the name of the formula? If it's blinking, you usually have a naming conflict.
That the definition of the message acts with the object. Now you get a copy of formula on both computers. And you make an update, change one machine or get update on the other.
Yes, that's true. I usually have like one patch with all my definitions in it. If I change that on one computer, I have to make sure the other ones is synchronized. Otherwise, it might not find the things. It's one of the reasons why I left the error message in the split and in the read nodes. Because it's an early warning sign that some meta information is not synchronized. If you know what you're doing, you can untoggle that and you don't get the early warning. Usually it's not a biggie because everything is in Git anyway. You just need to pull and then you're golden. Most of the time it's even enough to just reload the actual definition patch. Okay. One thing I should maybe tell you, there is no strict relation between the name of a formula you pick and the topic. Sometimes it makes sense to kind of call them the same. Sometimes it doesn't. It's up to you. But there's no semantic relation between them per default. Like per se, you can call it whatever. Like, for example, you could make a formula that's called, for example, into light MIDI input X-touch, because it's just in our company, and still give it a topic just nanoquark. It's totally valid if you want to. There's no strict relation between them. It's sometimes helpful to call them the same, but you don't need to.
Perhaps as a small analogy, you can think of a formula. If you're familiar to common languages like programming languages like C or C++, there are these structures, and you could kind of think of that the formula here is some type definition. So you have this type my formula with all these certain types, and the topic is kind of a name for the instance of this formula. So if you have a spread of many messages with this formula, you have just many messages of this type, and you can name them as you want. This kind of variable name.
Right. Yeah, this is especially useful when you have a spread of messages that belong to the same formula. So, for example, another example is good. I might have a formula for a car, so I know what's the maker, how many wheels it has, what's the rim size, and all this important information. But the name can be whatever. You can call the car Rudy, you can call it Richard D. James, or whatever. That might be a good analogy.
Which also holds for projectors.
Yeah.
All the NODE.
Okay. So we are almost through. We got the message itself covered conceptually. We got the formula covered conceptually. Now we only have the keep. The keep is something that makes a message stateful. In VL terms, it's probably mostly related to a pad. For that I have to go back to this patch, and you see the where's my mouse? You see this thing is already a keep. So in this case it's already a state. If I go back a step and actually use the more basic variant, create message, then you see I can rename them. It's keeping the structure intact, it's keeping the pins intact, it's all safe. But it's only outputting something if I switch this on. And each frame this is on, it will create a new message from spread, pull in all the information it has on top. It doesn't even have the force button anymore. It's gone because no message has a relation to the message it was created in the frame before. There's no state in between. So I don't know if something changed or not. So I have to just assume that everything changed, right? This is the common case for many kind of messages. Like an OSC message you only get in one frame and you get an update in 10 frames later, but you it's just a short snippet, a very short-lived snippet. You're just supposed to look at it, keep some information and throw the rest away. So that's actually the standard default you would expect from a message. The keep is something to make it stateful, to help it survive to the next frame and the next and the next. So if I don't want to use the config keep but the create instead, I would add a keep after that. For example, the most basic keep is the hold keep. Then and then you can make this a bang. So I bang this and you see it's the same message that remains in here in the hold keep, the one from 1203. If I bang this again, it's gonna be a new message. So it always keeps the last ones that came in here. If there are none coming in, it will not replace them. Very basic. It's got some convenience feature. You can tell it if it should output all message it has inside, or if it should output only the ones you tell the indexes. So it's got some kind of get slice inside, just for convenience, for quick patching. Because I realized like a lot of times when I'm using the hold keep, I want to get slice, so I just build it in, and it's quicker to actually work with it. Next one is the store keep. It's quite a radical node because now it has one. Now I send the next one. Interesting. Actually, it should keep them all. Anyway, save keep. Save keep is much more useful than the store keep anyway. You know, I put this in, And now, if I send a new message in here with the same topic, it tries to update the fields in the original message.
Has a different topic, it's just gonna store that.
Yes, if I change the topic here. It suddenly has two messages inside. And you can even see now we have two preview colors. One is from the first message, the other from the other message. And you can see in the bin size as well. And also in the split. Just inspect it real quick. Yeah, both messages will be split. Both of them are residing in the save now. And depending on what I send next, only those messages will be updated. This is true for partial messages as well. For example, if I only send a new field of view, it will only update the field of view in the message I want it to be changed. Good example would be this would help to kind of create a default, a custom default, and then I could zip cons message. So this is the default. This is the other one, and then I could, for example, from OSC. Kind of inject all the other information that are coming from Touch OSC, for example, if I want to change it with that. The information coming in here. This is actually. I don't know which one. It would look like this. So the information comes in from here and gets if it has the right topic, it will be updating the messages that are safely kept here. Is this clear?
So with OSC you can update single fields in the message.
For example, yeah. It can also come from a JSON file if you want to. It can come from, for example, if you. I don't have a good example. There's probably a good example in GoPal. Let's just see real quick. So, for example, in Touch OSC I used a pattern like that, I think. So I have this UDP. I'm kind of making messages from the raw OSC, and then I cons all kinds of them. So these are the ones that coming over the wire, and these are the defaults I prepared. So first frame, all the messages will be created by the default, set to 0 all along, and put into the save. Once I get messages from the network, it will update these messages accordingly, override the defaults. But anytime I want to reset my state, I can just bang the default. Just this, and it will update my internal representation of all the Touch OSC screens and send it back to the wire. That's next. Actually,
You could do it without the shift trigger.
yeah, there was a bugger in it. I recreated the regular expression each time, and actually I just need to create it once when it changes. It's much faster now. There's even a easier example. So duration only, it's this Open Frameworks tool that has a pretty solid timeline, which has only one problem: you can't scroll. Anyway, it's only sending changes too. So if you have, for example, a curve of floats, it will only send you updates when the float actually changed. And to get this going in D4, you would have to have sample and hold and kind of get the index of what you want to set and have to make sure that the spread count doesn't change. It's a lot of pain, but this it's just the safe keep, and you just feed the information into the input and make sure they all have a topic that makes sense. That matches. I can what? I mean, there's not much to it. You feed it messages or bundles, and it will create messages out of it. There's no real restriction. It's just gonna work. There's one thing that you can do. You can tell it if it should prefix. Like for example, the duration example has it's sending, like if you have a track called lightness, it will send an OSC message just with lightness. So you need to actually prefix it with something that that covers the whole bundle. So you can set an additional topic just to make sure it kind of fits your own definition of the message. And contract topic parts, well, that's quite advanced, but should be covered in the help patch. No. I don't use the OSC encoder because I just trust that the information will be of some value. All the information that's coming in. Yeah. If I don't want that, there's some extra project inside it just for OSC, where you can sift for OSC messages of a certain thing. But the idea is to get the OSC out of the way as soon as possible, because it's not the prettiest format. It's not pretty.
Most of it is strings. It has string file, string operations.
Yeah. Also, it's like sometimes you might want. There's an old project from Elliot Woods who attempted something similar than message, and his base idea was to put it on OSC. So it did pretty much the same like message, but the basic memory representation was an OSC message. It was so awfully slow that it couldn't be used. So message itself is a proper .NET object that you can access quickly and good. So that's the intention, to get from OSC to message as quick as possible. That's why these modules are so basic and versatile. You just take whatever comes and make a message out of it. Actually, I might want to go deeper into OSC just to see. Oh, what's the time? Network. Oh, but in the SDK, there's the option, like the data types that OSC allows is very restricted. It's integer, bool, float, double. With the extended mode, you can also send vectors and transforms and colors, which is not compliant to the actual specification of OSC 1.1. Held in prison by Berkeley. They didn't change it for the last 12 years, even though there are countless numbers of proposals how to improve it. Many academics tried to make it better. None of that was ever considered to go into the specification. So extended mode allows some specific VVVV nodes, data types to be included. Yes. So once you start communicating with other partners that don't have data types like vector 2D, you should switch off extended mode to be compliant. Of course, at that point it will not safely encode vectors. If you ever run that, just make an issue on GitHub and I might change, fix that.
Probably that it's not, you have to decide in the first place when you're changing again, instead of the problem.
Right. I never had a real problem with this because the formula in V4 is flexible enough to actually accept or kind of mimic what the other side is doing. So if for some reason they decide to send colors with 4 bytes, you just make a float out of 4 bytes and then it kind of works again. Anyway, I think that's it. I should just cover the. So that all the keeps there are right now, it's quite small. So the only thing we haven't seen in action is the session keep. The session keep is a little bit like the save keep, but it's got a formula. So it's not only looking at the topic, which all messages have, but for example, you can pick projector. It will tell you these things that could be used as an identifier. For example, you have many clients and each one sends you messages. And each one also sends you a session ID. You can pick the session ID in here, and each time a message arrives with a new session ID that no other message in the session keep has, it will assume it's a new session and put that in. If a message comes with an already existing session ID, it will just update the fields accordingly. Of course, this spreads, so you could this here. You could say, okay, I want. Doesn't make much sense, but I want the message to be well. It's kind of finding an identical message. That's already in the keep. So this means it would only find it identical if both the topic and this field matches. If for some reason there's a difference, it will assume it's a new a new message and will also keep it separately in the keep.
So it's like a primary key as a database.
Yeah. It needs to be unique, and it's gonna stay unique in the session keep, unless you mess with it with an edit, which you shouldn't probably. Okay.
So basically, it lets you define which ones are considered as the old messages, which are not considered as something different. Why would you keep several messages in the queue?
There is no queue really.
Yeah, as a spread of messages for later storing as a sequence that we record.
No. For example, you might have 10 beamer, 10 projectors, and they are only loaded once you know they are properly connected by the technician. So during the evening he is gonna switch on one projector at a time, and you will kind of activate that by adding it for example, to a safe key. So at first you have one projector, your patch works, you can map it already. Then the next one comes in, you add the second one. You can map that independently of the first one. So you kind of have a way to grow your configuration during the evening. That might be a useful case. With the Touch OSC message, Touch OSC, you're familiar with it? It's an Android and iOS app, and it's got layouts on 4 pages usually, and each page is regarded or is represented by one message in the end. So you can access all information from the first screen. This means if I have 4 screens, I will have 4 messages in my safe key with different definitions, different formulas, different contents, but it's gonna be 4. They're all in one key.
So what's your idea if you not would have these threads of messages?
Well, I'd use inheritance to fill my system of values and parameters in the whole software in a structured way, and then select, for example, a subset of these values and parameters to define it as a preset. For example, I have a preset for player 1 or a preset for player 2, and I can go to the preset of player which was saved from track 2 loaded to track 1, for example. It's living inside the software as a preset for recording purposes of playback versus on the track. But for saving and loading, we can change and load it to another preset. So I have kind of the ecosystem parameters that has logical inheritance and also flags which are the whole software I want to save, which maybe I want to save as a the colorization I currently have, or the effects I currently have, only save the effects, or only save materials, or save a specific combination of materials and effects, but I don't override when I load it in, I don't override the colorization. So I want to really flexible decide what is saved and what is needed, what is part of the preset, what is being overwritten when I load this preset, when I launch a preset. I want to see, this preset doesn't contain any code, so I can say that it's loaded, and it will bring up this kind of look, but it won't touch my colors. And for this, I have to really well design tagging, so maybe some also the inheritance of the old stuff, so that it matches all the use cases like loading and saving, also formatting back, and also remapping to other tracks. This is kind of I have to be very prepared which features to use with
Yeah.
Okay, I decided to see Touch OC once more, just to actually let me just close this down. Forgot to install the X11, so all this was red. No, it should be okay. Because there's one important thing all these 5 keeps I showed you have in common. Because they keep close guard on the messages that are stored within, they know a lot more about the message than any other part of the patch. So there's the option to get only the changes. Like you have updates coming in from different sources, and it will know which fields have actually changed. This is how Touch OC would look like. Okay. So here's the save keep, and the save has a hidden pin. It's called diff output. The diff is basically the change that happened since the time the save keep was updated the last time. So all the change that came in the same frame after the session keep was evaluated, and all the changes that happened before it was evaluated. It's all coming in. So for example, if I start okay, the technique is quite easy. So you have the save keep, which is the only place where all the status is saved, and it's outputted like this, and after that it can be edited outside of the dispatch, like here. I just toggle this, and you see it's updating the status inside here, even though it's downstream. Same happens here. When I'm changing this somewhere else in my application, I want this change to also reflect on the Touch OC device, of course. And for that, I activate the diff output, and I get 2 new pins. That's once the message diff and some spread with integers telling which ones of the messages actually had the change. So I'm just using the message diff, which also is a new message with the same topic, but only the fields that have changed. So let's try to see this. So I'm hitting. Oh man, I'm changing the toggle, and you will see, if you look closely, it should actually be a 4. Yeah, it's 4 messages, because I'm updating all 4 pages at once. If I only update this XY cross thing, whoop, it's just 1 message. It's updated. And also only this 1 field. Because I know this, I'm using SOSC bundle. It's creating out of the messages an OSC bundle. and then I unbundle it because Touch OSC expects singular messages, not a bundle, and just send it over there. And voila, I have a bidirectional device that can be changed from anywhere with any other mapping. So I could synchronize this with the MIDI controller I have, with the light sensor, and override it anyway from my device. Besides OSC, it's supporting message pack serialization, which is the industry standard for binary after Google Protocol, and also JSON. Almost all JSONs that you find in the wild you can transform to a message. It's usually a hierarchical message where you have a message with a field of type message, but you can dump most JSON to message just by from string message JSON. I think the help patch is no help patch. In GillPower there's examples where I'm just reading some Twitter web service, just parsing it, and then you can handle it the way you're used to. Okay, but I guess most of that can be found out easily with all the information provided. If you're unsure what else is possible with message, just one trick. If you downloaded it in the packs, there's all nodes, which lists all the nodes that are currently in the pack. Tells you what it's useful for, and if you say you need other way for serialization, you can just look at here and see what else is possible. All the green ones have help patches, the black ones don't. And it's a good idea to go from here. If you need a quick rehash of what I'm telling you today, there's another useful thing. It's in the root of GillPower. It's 101 message, which kind of gives you a chapter-wise introduction to all the features and concepts of message, and also some things that I've been connecting over the years. Okay, so we are coming to the last part of the workshop. I want to build a chat with you that's powered by ZeroMQ. It's another network protocol based on TCP, and it integrates very well with message. So let's see if that's possible. For that, I'm gonna start a new patch. Close all this stuff. My cheat sheet. Oop. Okay. typewriter. And okay, the goal of this patch is gonna be that we all have one chat room, or many if you want to, and if for example Shaw is typing something, we all want to see what on our own laptops, see what he typed, and also if I type something, I want to publish it to all of you. At least if you're interested in the same chat room like I'm using. It's gonna be the goal. No. So each time I'm hitting enter, I want to create a message and send it to whoever is interested. Okay. The message I'm gonna sending. Let's do it like here. Might be well. I gonna have a nickname, I guess. I see. There's a typo string. It turns red. Need to fix it. Now it's valid. I want to send my actual chat line. See, it's still working. And just for good measure, I'm gonna use a counter that kinda identifies each individual message I'm gonna send in. Alright. And the formula is none, that's okay for now. This here, the topic. Okay, this now I'm gonna make a convention. The topic in this case should be the name of the chat room. So like that. So my nickname is gonna be unique for me. So you should put your nickname in there. It's gonna be the text and the counter. So typewriter is gonna have the text. Okay, now I need some boilerplate, clean. To filter out all things that are empty. Ah, god damn it. And also I only want to send a message when I hit return. So you've probably done this 100 times as well. For good measure. Oh. Okay, and once both of these conditions are fulfilled, I'm gonna send, and only then. So the message I typed cannot be empty, and it's only being sent when I hit return. Also for good measure, delay. If I hit return, I want the typewriter to start with a fresh line. Yeah, if you don't like the frame delay, which is totally acceptable, take Tog Edge instead and use this. We'll do the same thing, defer the reset to one frame, because if I reset the same frame, it's gonna delete the line I want to send. So I need to defer this for one frame. Usually it's done by frame delay, but Tog Edge is totally fine for this case too. Okay. Sending should be quite easy.
Is everybody keeping up? Is everybody keeping up here with the speed of the patching?
If you need more time, then tell me. I can make it pretty in the meantime. Don't hear clicking anymore. Gonna continue in a second. So next, if you've done communication with, for example, MQTT, for example, you usually have to install a broker somewhere on the network. You have to download this, configure this, but this is 0MQ, so we do it within V4. We don't need any extra installations and no weird things. So I want to send the message I just created to the network, to the broker. So I basically use a publisher. TCP is fine. Localhost is not fine. Actually, it should be my computer, just for the hell of it. Let's see what I have. This gateway. So, this. Let's see. Okay. So this is my computer. I'm gonna open the broker. Oh, just me. You don't need to use this window. You don't need to patch this. That's something I'm gonna do. You just need to follow it here in the chat. Put this in here. Oh, and you need to switch off bind. That's very important. Port. Let's use something else. So that will be the socket I'm sending this to.
So in this case, don't use your IP, but use this one here, that everything's percent involved.
Okay, should be easier to read. So that's gonna open the socket as soon as I enable this. Alright? Once the socket is open, I can then send a message. This here. It's expecting the socket. It's expecting a spread of messages. If it's nil, it's not gonna send anything, obviously, so it's okay to send all the time. Only if there's a message coming in. If this is not nil, it will actually start executing and put it on the wire. Oh, it should send all of them over the same socket. It spreads a little, but you can leave the default like it is. Right, the counter's still missing. So each time the conditions are fulfilled, gonna create a new thing. Okay, while you try to finish this, I'm gonna make the broker real quick. In fact, that's been the standard pattern I've been using for the last 1 or 2 years. Yes. Nee, ist die IP falsch. X subscriber.
Just curiosity, would you ever basically know when the bind thing, what does it do?
Sorry?
The bind thing on the publisher, what should we turn on and what does it do when it's doing?
The bind.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, if you have a port, there can only be one application at the time actually being responsible for this. Sometimes that's why it's called the server and not the client. In ZeroMQ, this concept was kind of thought through again, and you don't have this distinction of a server and client anymore in the way you're used to, but you still have to kind of tell the open source, the operating system, who's responsible for that port on that machine. And this is basically what bind means. Only the one that binds is fully responsible for that socket. In the case of ZeroMQ, this means it's the one that starts a communication, starts the handshake, watches that the clients are still running, handles subscriptions. That's all the responsibility of the socket that has binded, so that anybody else can still connect to that port, but cannot bind. There can only be one. That's it in a nutshell. It's actually quite easy, but can be well, it's just a new terminology, I guess. It's not server client, it's either binded or not. And in our case, only the broker will bind to anything. All the clients, so your program will not bind, because well, the broker is gonna manage all connections. So let's just make sure that's the case. They are both bound. Leave this here. I'm gonna tell it exactly what I'm listening to, so it knows which adapter to use. Put this in here. It's okay. I'm gonna enable this later. So, and the publisher. So all the things you send will be, all the things you publish will be will arrive here, and then I need to publish it from the broker again, so all you guys can subscribe to it. So basically I have these two things. I just have a proxy in between. Oh, I need to set a different port, because this one is already bound to. Now I need a second port to publish again, which has which needs a different port. I'll just take the next one.
Do you know the concept of publish subscriber? So this is a messaging concept, like, so there's one publisher, like a newspaper or something, and you can subscribe, or like a newsletter, and you can subscribe to some certain topic. In this case, this will be our topic, the slash, or no, it's a hash VVVV, and you're kind of subscribing to one certain topic, and the 0MQ handles the messages or the requests. When you say, if you subscribe to some topic and the publisher is publishing a message, or then everybody is subscribed to this channel or to this topic will receive the message.
So not everybody is receiving all the messages.
Only the ones you're interested.
There's
Yeah.
intelligence.
Yeah.
The broker knows.
It's
Yes,
the intelligence.
yes. It will only send the messages that the
Completely different.
other partner is actually interested in. Filtering is done on the sender side, which is very hard to create your own, but it's built in 0MQ. So just to make sure it's working, I'm gonna create a debug subscriber. It's not binding. It's listening to the sending part of my proxy. I need to have the same endpoint. And receive. Okay, just so we can see what the last message was that came in. Time to do some visualization maybe. So this should become my prompt for the message that I'm typing right now. Oop. Okay, see? Working. Maybe space this a little. Oop. And now the moment of truth arrived. I need to enable my publisher, of course. Now if I hit enter, it should create the message. Oh. It's not working.
It's the subscribe. What was this? Used to be topic.
So the broker doesn't care about this one. Leave this empty. It should have all of them.
I guess you want the down part from the package into the end instead of the image, because you have several, unless you have several.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Just use this here. But it's not sending. And
Is it right that you have 3 different ports now?
of course, I'm sending to a whole different port. Should be this, right?
Yes.
Thank you. And now, there it is. So things are working. Yeah, make sure you have the same port. The beauty of this is you don't need to define different ports for different things. You all send them to one port and you all receive to one port, and the actual information you need you don't distribute on different ports, but only distribute it with different topics. With this you can get all the data on one single port, one point of configuration, and the way you actually like handle the messages coming in can be done within message, which would be a pain if you get like raw data that's meant to be floats. You actually have to, you would be tempted to use a different port just to separate from other information. But here it's safe, one port for in, one port for out, and the whole network is finished in configuration terms. So
Actually, enter the subscription topic into the subscriber publisher.
okay, next one will be the subscriber on your end. So this is just done, so I'm sure it's working. Actually, have a last look, because now I'm gonna close it. Or I am moving this over here. And now we okay. So this is the important part on your end. If you want to chat with us, then you should replicate this. Just make sure all my weird things are here. Is it okay if I move this a little? Yeah.
Das ist not das Message Symbol. Müsstest du dann deinen Broker sehen?
Oh yeah, that's true. If you want to test this, that might be a good idea. I just keep this, and whoever sends a message, then I would see the nickname here.
Sorry?
On our end, now we're just supposed to have a publisher. The broker aspect is not possible.
No broker.
You don't need a broker in this patch. You only need this chat window without the broker.
So the broker, I usually put it in an extra instance, so it's safe from anything else. If you want to, you can download the 0MQ distribution with, I don't know, Python or Ruby or whatever you like, and put it on a Raspberry Pi. It's safe. You kind of build the same thing I built here in a different language, Erlang, Java, whatever you want. 0MQ implementations for all major languages. It's the IP address? You cannot ping it. Okay, gonna do something crazy. Okay, can you ping now? Need to check my connection. Okay, I'm still connected. So if you want, I can try to ping you, maybe, just to make sure it's... No ping? $16.23? What? Yeah, that's why you should always bring your own switch. Well, I don't understand.
Das
Okay.
lokales Netzwerk.
It's usually better practice to use something between 1024 and around 12,000. If ping is not working, something else is fishy. I mean, I could continue patching this. Maybe it's probably not even half the fun now. And you could try to get some cables, maybe.
Now, what about your Wi-Fi?
That's a bummer.
Create mobile hotspot on your Wi-Fi connection.
It's there.
It's this here. Right. So it's this here. Okay, here it is. And now I can.
No, Windows. Mobile hotspot. Maybe you can find it in settings.
Okay. WLAN-Einstellungen.
Yep.
Gibt einfach Mobile Hotspot an.
Was ist das?
Oh.
Sind wir bei der Windows-Suche
I find it. Put it.
Yeah.
Yep. Close this. And yep.
Probably radio. It's the same again.
Mobile hotspot.
Should be here.
Ist der Adapter?
You can connect to my hotspot.
And then you open the broker. Let's try this.
Now.
So do you see your
Test spot.
test spot? So, but unfortunately that's gonna do havoc to the...
What's the key for the test spot?
Is there a key? Oh yeah, there's a key.
Key?
Ja, dat wird Gradnamen.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 5, 6, 7,
8.
8.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Uh-huh.
So just
What your IP address now?
not don't know where the broker went. Yeah, this. What's your IP?
Du kannst auch der Bürger werden. Dann ist ja egal. Ich werde es tun.
I see you.
So ist es.
Okay.
But how connect me to this? Or to users?
Okay. So I'm gonna just quickly change this IP. Whoop. Ah, there it is. Okay, I will need to update the broker. Oh, this might actually crash. Yeah, it's crashing. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah, but it's okay. I was counting on it. Boop. Pages. This kind of broker that the proxy is a little shaky, but usually you just do it once and then leave it untouched. It's only if you change the IP that you need to start it up with disabled.
Very clearly note before you change the IP and use the API.
So now I can.
It's proxy node, you say.
Yeah, it's just my proxy. It's a little shaky in this. So I changed it now for real. I enable it again, and then now it's safe. Now it's working. That's all. Oh wait.
It's not exactly
Oh yes. This means it accepts all messages, or it subscribes to all messages that start with this string. So if you leave it empty, you gain access to all. If you're only interested in the ones that are like that, it will accept all topic channels starting with this. It's not as useful as the Sift because it doesn't have wildcards, but it's just the way it is.
the receiving unit.
Yes.
Our patch.
Yes. But if you want to try, if it's something is coming, you can just send something. Okay. Nice. Okay, this is looking good. Just need this, check. So now we just need to add it to our application. We need a classic subscriber. Whoop. It needs a connection to the other port. It was 4, 5, 6, 8. Of course, it's being accessed by the same endpoint, which is my computer. We don't want to bind it because the broker is binding it, but we want to enable it. And the topic, of course, that's our interest. I'm only interested in our chat. So if I think so. Yeah, it should spread. Everything that I receive on this port, I assume to be a message. Okay. Now I add this session keep. Okay, and this is the time where I actually start to need a formula. So far I've been fine without. I've been using the dynamic create, but now the session keep actually needs information about the thing I wanna sessionize. So I'm gonna create one. Update. Tell it I want to sessionize chat messages. And each individual message should have a different topic. So if I'm sending a message to another chat channel, it should know it's two different things. I want it to be unique by nickname. So if somebody else chats something in the same chat room, it's different. And also I'm using the counter as a third identification if it's unique. So each time I send a message, the counter will increase and all the messages will be saved in the session keep. Session has another useful thing. I can remove them after a certain time. So I only want to leave them in there for 15 seconds. After that they are removed from the session keep. It's time to split them. Maybe. Yes. So first I make a string with the nickname and the message, and then it just adds all the things into one string. A little bit easier. Don't need to. Oh, something. Actually, I don't need the carriage return line feed. I'm seeing this should be none, because each message is ended by a return, because you need to hit it. So it should be like this. If you send a message, by the way, it should already pop up there. Das ist dort unten in der Ecke noch.
Why you think it's going up?
Supervised 4, 5, 6, 7. Same as the 4, 5, 6, 8 is also 10.
Okay, and the other question?
Sure.
Yeah.
When I tap my string, there's no going up.
Okay, I know. I think I know why. I used two different things. This is the add string. This should be add string spectral. Yes.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
And
But it's not. So it's actually. Is it sending? What's your topic of your message that you create?
for me,
No. VVVV.
actually it is.
Yeah, can.
That's right.
So there must be something wrong with my receiver, huh? So for some reason I'm getting yours, I'm not getting yours, but mine. Can you set some? Yeah. It's funny. Why is it receiving one? I think I know why. Just disable. For a second. Okay, can you type again? Something? The thing is, you're receiving it again, so your round trip is actually working. You see, this wouldn't be here unless it would be received from the network. So this actually goes to the broker and back. This is magic. But for some reason, it's not. Okay, you don't need this. You can delete this.
I add it only for remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you try to delete it? So just to make sure it's not interfering? I'm gonna share the patches anyway. I have some. Okay. Still not coming. But it's still
with my
thinking of your nickname. Nickname counter, yeah, that's all fine. Shouldn't matter, but just to make sure.
Are you debugging why his messages aren't showing up? And does it mean my nickname is written differently?
Yes. Yes, that matters. That matters. It's true. Where do you have your formula? Yeah, camel case is good. Just to make it like that. Of course you need to publish it. Now this turns red because it doesn't know. Yes, and split needs to be fixed too. Can you open the right click? Can you open it? Now you need to, yes. And this one is a link that's invalid now. So now you can connect it again. Okay.
Yeah. I can't tell but VVR.
So this. A second. Let's see how you created topic. Nickname is still. It's gonna be a chat now too. Okay. It's still not there for some reason.
You don't receive it?
The NODE17 Forum is the very early stage of really setting that all happening. It's creative coding community called Creative Coding Worldwide, and there are like 10 different community services and countries all around the world sharing their stories about creative coding communication. Amsterdam, Toronto,
Just to see the
Berlin, Moscow, Paris, Buenos Aires, and
Yeah, you
checking.
cannot see. You can
I'm going to pass it over to David. He's going to introduce how we talk about creative.
maybe something.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone coming here
Now I
today.
cannot see it.
Driving cars and this is a project
creating
with we will have
Again, please. Are you actually creating the messages? Well, it seems like.
this is an exterior as well. Okay. And so we saw
This is fine. This is fine. Yes,
okay. So we'll be joining the conversation. Joey Lee, I think you are all with us. Joey Lee is a geographer and media artist studying computational collaboration. His work is centered on maps at the intersection of geography and technology. Joey draws inspiration from a variety of communities, including those from computational, speculative design, digital media arts, and open tech activism. Previously at Mozilla Science Lab, the University of British Columbia,
No, it's not even good for you anymore.
project trained anywhere in the development of mobile CO2 mapping systems for curricular updated visualization. Joe's currently based in Stuttgart, navigating the